pen and ink techniques for your textured hand drawings. So on a piece of sketchbook paper or a piece of the blank printer paper, I want you to title it Pen and Ink Techniques, and you're going to practice and draw an example of each of the simulated texture pen and ink techniques. You have this packet in your packet of notes, so get that out. We're going to take a look at each one of these, write some examples of what they're good to use for so you can get a feel of the pen stroke before you start your textured hand rough drafts. So on your paper, I want you to make 7 circles about the size of a golf ball. And the first one we're going to discuss is crosshatch. Crosshatch is great for fabric, for a file, like a metal file or a fingernail file. And it's just a series of parallel lines. You start going all one direction. And I'm lifting the pen so that the lines get lighter. And then you're going to turn the paper and you're going to go the opposing direction. The darker and heavier you want the texture to be, the more directions you put into it. So I could do horizontal. I could even go in and do vertical along this very small edge there, so that you've got that textured shaded look. The second technique is parallel lines. Parallel lines are great for glass, anything that's shiny, like metal or ice. And we're basically implying the effect of reflection. So it's kind of like the first layer in crosshatch, but they break apart. You have to be sure to not, and I'll do a section going one direction and then I'll come the other direction. You'll have varying lengths. It'll break apart. If you overdraw it, it ends up looking ridged like celery. So less is more when it comes to that technique. The third technique is contour lines. Contour lines are great for ridges. Anything that's ridged, bumps, right? We're creating the optical illusion of 3D, things popping off the paper. So I'll do a set of ridges up here first. And what you want to do is you're going to draw in towards the gap with little curved lines like eyelashes. I'm not going back and forth like this. That's not correct. The pen stroke always goes the same direction. I'm always lifting it, the pen, with each little stroke. And then I'm going to turn the paper and I'm going to come back the opposing direction, but you leave a little space, which looks like a highlight, down the center of that. And that's what gives it that 3D effect. So this one takes a little more time. If you want to pause your video and work on the ridges real quick, you could do that. The other technique is like making bumps on like an alligator skin or rocks or pebbles. Contour lines down along the bottom edges to show that shadow and the curve. The more curved the line is, the deeper it looks. Just like that. So on the back page, we've got 4 more. Okay, the next one we're gonna do is stipple. Stipple is great for sand. It's great for textures like on an orange peel, a basketball, or a football. But it's a small bumpy pattern, right? It's dots. The bigger and heavier the dots are, the deeper the texture looks, the rougher the texture looks. It is the most time consuming. It's great for stubble on a person's face. But the lighter and farther out it's spaced, the shallower and smoother the surface looks. Next is scribble. Now, scribble is exactly what it says, right? The trick is to not make it too uniform, right? We're not doing rows back and forth like this. That's wrong. Scribble's more random. And when I do scribble, my hand and my arm both are constantly moving. And I lift and I set the pen back down. And I lift and I set the pen back down. There's gonna be sharp edges. There's gonna be loopy edges. The more it overlaps, the denser and thicker the texture looks. And it starts to break apart in the lighter areas. This is great for foliage, like leaves on trees that are far away, certain types of hair, anything that looks tangled is a great subject for scribble. Crisscross. Crisscross is grass and fur. Two main things you use it for. And it is a random crosshatch, right? So you start at the bottom. I'm lifting the pen. They're random lengths, and they just crisscross over each other. Like grass growing out of the ground or fur on an animal. And then the last one is wavy lines. Wavy lines are good for wood grain. And they're also good for folds in fabric or skin. So I'm actually going to add a second circle here, just so I have a little room for both. So wood grain, they wrap around each other, and they kind of have weight. Some are closer and farther away than others. But think about the wood on a baseball bat or the grain you see on a wooden table, like that. Now wavy lines can also make the surface look like it's folding on the paper. So that has to do with the spacing. So at each crease, the lines get a little closer and tighter, and then space out in between them. And it'll actually look like the surface of the paper's bending a little bit. Just like that, so it looks like there's like canyons on the surface. So those are your 7 penning techniques. I want you to do this and get a feel for the pen before you start your rough draft drawings of your textured hands.